we got to thought about is now we are encountering of the developing the thinking of the revolutionizing of the system of education as brought about by the Professor Navaratna is paradigm shifting of our education system. That is what I have understood and seen is the problems that the university system of education that they are encountering is, I think, about the ideology that which are being embedded in the students of the universities, which I think the word of from their the minds or the mindset. So that I think we have to be seen to defeat an ideology. I think we need to have an ideology. So I think if you can comment on this, I think really appreciate. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that question. Let me ask maybe Professor Vijay Singh to react to it, more relevant to what he said.
I thought it was addressed to Cyril.
Maybe he could also say something, but maybe after.
Yes, thank you very much for posing that question. I think, as you clearly mentioned, so human capital development is the key for next 3 decades. So if we take these 5 hubs, so without knowledge or the human capital, we cannot achieve any other things. But still, especially our education system is producing the old type of people based on knowledge. Knowledge also highly outdated sometimes. So knowledge has to be theoretical as well as practical. So practical knowledge is very important. And also the skills, the presentation skills, communication skills, teamwork, leadership, all these things are very important. And the attitude and the mindset or the paradigms. All 4 areas are very important, but unfortunately, especially in the liberal arts, we are mainly focusing on knowledge. Other than that, we have to now inculcate all these other aspects, especially the skills, because these people are hired by the public sector or the private sector. So they are expecting not only knowledge, but a lot of skills. But we have to inculcate those. For that, we have to change the teaching methodology from teacher-centered to student-centered. For that, we have to change the mindset of the professors or the lecturers first. So these are the challenges we are facing. So anyway, so when you do a change, always there's a roller coaster. So initially, we have to come down. So a lot of restrictions, a lot of criticisms are coming, then we'll climb the ladder. So these days, what we are facing is that the roller coaster coming down with a lot of resistance, and then through this, people will understand. Now, earlier, higher education topic was not under the discussion. Now people are talking and discussing, and Mr. Lalit Tirthing is going to appoint a presidential commission, task force. Then all these things will come out and discuss, and then very easy to move forward. Actually, now, when we try to do a change, first we have to do the defreeze. Now, education sector, higher education sector is defreezed. Now, we can do some changes with the dialogue and participatory approach, then we can go forward. So I totally agree with you. Education has a big role, but at the same time, changing mindset and changing attitude and the way of doing things, not that easy, especially in the university system.
Rajiv?
Yeah, I would actually go slightly further and say I think part of our problem is that we are trying to set up and change models, whereas my view is there shouldn't be any model at all. You know, I go back to what I think General Katok was saying. We have a tendency in Sri Lanka to demand uniformity. And we should not want uniformity at all. We should set aims and objectives and then allow free rein to anybody to deliver those, with the role of the state being restricted to 2 vital principles. One is providing services to those who cannot otherwise access them, and secondly, to monitoring the quality of the other services. Now, I think there has been an effort to shift the whole higher education system. I think it was correct, but my own view is that it didn't go far enough. I think the same applies to education. For instance, we don't have enough teachers for vital subjects. And we keep being told by successive ministers of education that they have the problem under their control and they will solve it. And then 2 years later, a new minister comes and says, I'll solve it. And after 50 years, they must realize that they can't solve it. You know, 10 people have failed. And the answer very simply is to set expectations and allow freedom for people to produce the right teachers, and the state evaluates. So the same thing should go for higher education. We should deliver extra models instead of, as we have now obviously decided to shift from the academic model of education. But this was actually decided 20 years ago when we had a visionary chairman of the UGC, Professor Arjuna Alivihara. He set up affiliated university colleges which were meant to provide alternatives. That's actually when I went back into public service. And within 2 years, the former affiliated colleges turned into second-rate versions of the main universities. So this diversity is what we need to encourage, with emphasis on the aims of any project, not the method of delivery, because uniformity of delivery is an absolute disaster.
Just to add to what both of them said, when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh appointed the National Knowledge Commission of India in 2006, I was a great ardent fan of that subject, kept on following, I still do, headed by none other than Mr. Sam Pitroda. I think they brought about a very interesting thing. The National Knowledge Commission deliberations have focused on 5 key areas of the knowledge paradigm: access to knowledge, knowledge concepts, knowledge creation, knowledge application, and development of better knowledge services. I think we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Wherever anything good is being done, let us be humble enough to just copy it, maybe with slight modifications. This is what exactly we have to be looking at. How do we create knowledge? Do we ensure access to knowledge? Now, this is a huge issue in reconciliation. As Rajiv said, any community, wherever they are, they need to have access to knowledge equally as one who is in Colombo. So whether you are in the north or the south or the west or the east, anyone. No geographical discrimination wherever you are. So I think these are some of the things that may be taken forward by those of you who are interested in this subject. If you go into the Knowledge Commission website, it will give you a great perspective of what the Commission has been doing during the last 6 years. In fact, Sri Lanka is now thinking about having its own Knowledge Commission. There have been a lot of discussions. We have our own National Education Commission, but this goes beyond. For instance, one of the very interesting areas that they are looking at it is, in addition to school education, more quality PhDs, not just PhDs, quality PhDs, more talented students in maths and science, open educational resources. Very interesting. Absolute paradigm shifts. So I think that's the, if you look at this whole thing in a total sense, it's growing, but there are models to look at. And as Rajiv said, we are looking at models 20 years ago, which we established. We don't need to do that. We need to have new strategic thinking. Thank you. I'm sure there must be many clarifications to seek. Yes.
So I am Brigadier Padma Kumara. Actually, we are talking about the national security. My understanding, the national security is not that the security what we are talking about. It includes the economic security, social security, cultural security, even the education security. At present, we are facing a lot of challenges, especially the education security, cultural, and even the religious security. What is your view about it, sir?
Well, since you have posed the question to me, with all these distinguished speakers around me, I feel a little bit awkward to reply, but let me give you my personal understanding. What you say is very true. The whole issue of national security is not a simple subject where you can't leave it to the Ministry of Defense, just to say the least. Ministry of Defense has a particular role cut out for it. But when you talk about national security, I think it encompasses all systems in government, all systems in civilian life, all systems in non-governmental work. These are all put together. That is where you have a total national security perspective. Now, if you don't have quality education, if you don't have quality health, if you don't have quality social development programs, if you don't take care of the poor, if you don't take care of infrastructural development, if you don't look towards the world's emerging technologies, for instance, let us say if we are behind the developments in information technology, if our governments still work on paper and we are not bothered about creating networks, creating secure networks, exchanging information quickly, decision making to be done very quickly, then we would be far behind. Then obviously you will compromise national security. Because unless you have governments working very well oiled, I mean this is like a huge machine where you have wheels working, and if each interaction is not oiled well, the machinery doesn't work. So the most important thing for our country, the national security, is, I would say, a system put together of all these components that I talked about. Maybe I only talked about the main ones. There's so many others. If you don't take care of the rural development initiative,
when I was teaching political philosophy at the SLMA, and I used to keep asking the cadets, what they thought was the role of government and what should be done by central government, etc. And the general consensus was that obviously the role of central government is security. And a lot of other things should be devolved or decentralized. I'm not going to get in that political debate, but the argument was the central government cannot make sure that the drains in place X are clean. Now, the interesting thing is that security is obviously a broad concept, as you stressed. There's obviously what you call military security, financial security. Those are the traditional views. But I think you're perfectly right to also extend things into things like food security and education and health security. But I think what Sri Lanka has not yet developed thoroughly, particularly in the context of understanding that service delivery cannot be done centrally, is the nexus between national policy, which must guarantee security in all these respects to everybody, and mechanisms to implement this. So, for instance, one of the things I've just been bringing up with the Attorney General's Department is the need to make sure that we respect the delivery capacity of subsidiary levels of government, whether it's provincial councils or Pradesh Sabhas or whatever, but the policy